Hello everyone, so my name is Smita Jain and welcome to the episode 3 of our MGLuxM podcast. As you know, I'm the program director of MGLuxM at SP Jain School of Global Management, and I can't be happier to introduce you to our guest for today, Professor Alessandro Brun. I'm very happy to have him here. He's also the co-director for the MGLuxM program and has been part of the program since day one. Welcome, Alessandro.
Thank you for having me, Smita.
Thank you for joining us for this podcast. And for those of you who don't already know the topic, we'll be talking today about balancing the journey between education, entrepreneurship, and mentorship, and how does Alessandro do all of that. So I think, Alessandro, before we get started, of course, our audiences would want to know, and even, I would want to know how long has it been for you teaching, and how long has this education journey been for you? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. Well, let's say technically, I graduated at Politecnico di Milano in 1997.
Wow.
That tells you about my age. And from day one, I started teaching while I was carrying out my PhD. Our department and our School of Management was a bit smaller than it is today at the time. So there was a lot of teaching workload and teaching appointment for everybody who was happy to contribute, and I contributed enthusiastically since day one. But that's only the formal part of my appointments, because actually as a high school student, I was actually financing my studies by teaching Italian and English and mathematics to smaller kids, and I also have been teaching music as I progressed my career, quote unquote, as a guitar player. I was also teaching. So throughout my teenage years and at university, I've been a teacher. So I can tell you that literally I've been teaching since all of my life.
Yeah, I have seen some of those amazing videos on Instagram. You playing the guitar, I must tell you, that's some talent there. So, yes, education, you've been doing that for so long, and why only talk about Milan when I know that you've had so many other experiences in so many different parts of the world. So can you tell us a little bit more about that too, Alessandro?
That's true. Even though I was born and bred in Milan, and literally from my apartment I could see Politecnico di Milano. I did my high school there, I graduated there, I did my PhD there, and besides 1 year abroad in England in 1995 as an exchange student, I always spent my life in Italy.
Wow.
Nonetheless, I had, thanks to the international vocation of Politecnico, some nice international exposure. First of all, I was appointed by Politecnico di Milano to teach in the various campuses we have in Italy, and in Shanghai, where I was teaching a few years back for one semester to engineering students. And then I also received the appointments as visiting professor in regular courses at the engineering level in England, in Switzerland, in Monte Carlo, where I'm still visiting professor at the International University of Milan. Besides that, I contributed to the creation of a number of programs in partnership.
Yes.
The longest standing with 12 edition is definitely the one with SP Jain. And so I come every year or even twice a year to teach in India. Similarly, we established a master with France, where I go and teach, with China, with the United Arab Emirates.
Wow.
And this is carrying out lectures within a university in a course that I co-design, plus being invited for specific topics in a number of countries. And every time you prepare for a single appointment, you have to understand a little bit who am I going to talk to, what kind of culture is there, what kind of program it is it more senior, less senior. I literally, if we start from East, I've been teaching in Japan, in Singapore, in Thailand, in Russia. Then we moved back to Europe, where I probably have been teaching in most of the countries, and also in the United States of America. every time you find a different audience, a different local culture, a different attitude to interacting with professors that are countries in which it is considered not nice for the professor to stop him, ask questions, or even say anything during the class. So literally in those cultures it's very hard for me to engage them in a conversation. Not a problem with Mediterranean countries or Indian countries, in which if I engage a conversation, you will have fun discussing with students for hours.
Wow. So that's amazing. So tell us a little bit about how do you balance the teaching part, which is so much about imparting education. And I know that you are also very much enthusiastic about creating companies, creating businesses. So where's the balance? Because one is totally opposite than the other. One is about learning and one is about teaching. So how do you balance that?
That's right, but the two parts are completing one another. There are other systems, let me say educational systems, in which a focused career is privileged. Do you want to do scientific research or do you want to teach? And depending on that, you will invest most of your time in one of these. In our university and in our culture, we tend to balance in order to get to have a more developed knowledge. You know the Vitruvian Man of Leonardo da Vinci. It is the man stretching the arms, extending the arms, but he's also standing. There are companies that think that managers should have a similar T shape, embracing more arguments, but going also down in the details. You cannot go down in the details if you don't do your own scientific research on the topic, if you don't do your own consultancy activities with companies, if you don't run your own business. And this is where I get the information, the wealth, the richness of case studies, of examples, of anecdotes in different areas that then I can go in class and teach.
So in a way, one is actually supporting the other.
Absolutely so. And where you cannot reach with your own direct experience, which is always the best, books are a source of knowledge. So I'm also an avid reader. While flying here, I've been reading a book that I was planning to read for quite some time now. Good to Great is a book explaining how successful companies became so excellent. And I am halfway through the book. While flying back home, I will finish my reading, and that will enrich my knowledge about this once more.
Absolutely. I mean, a little off topic, but I would love for you to also share some interesting books with our audiences that you would suggest them to read. I think we would come back to that as well. So that would be interesting for them to know, like someone like you who is so much into education, who's so much into creating businesses, who's so much into mentorship. What inspires you?
Absolutely, and I will tell you about books in luxury and books in management in general. But let's not forget, I've been writing and authoring with the other master director of Masters in Luxury, one book that just exited about luxury. That's the latest book on the shelves, and I think that our audience is interested in also very modern writing about very recent trends. We are speaking about the future, we're speaking about luxury and the metaverse, luxury and sustainability, topics that were hard to read about until yesterday because nobody was studying them and writing them. So another privilege of having the chance to see up close and personal the companies in luxury is that I have then the possibility to write about them and disseminate the culture, managerial culture, about what is going on.
Absolutely. So Alessandro, tell me, what led you to create a company? And we really want to know a little bit more about Milano. Can you share a little bit, please?
Okay. What led me is, I think, a combination of three factors. The first and foremost, is the curiosity and the eagerness of doing things rather than just teaching them. I always hoped that my students would embark in their own entrepreneurial journeys, doing their projects, and I've always been, putting projects down to wood. And the second point is I am teaching through case studies, and unfortunately in luxury, I very frequently found myself discussing with students some mistakes that most prominent luxury brands are doing. They're cutting costs and corners with quality, they're substituting precious material with cheaper ones, they're not investing enough in sustainability. I'm not speaking about all the brands, but some brands did these mistakes. And I found myself saying to students, oh dear students, don't worry, when I will have my brand, when I will have my company, we will not let down the customers. We will not cut corners on quality.
Absolutely.
And I, at a certain point, started convincing myself there will be a day in which I will be doing the most unapologetically high quality, best in class products that you can imagine.
Wow.
And the third point was I found a student who one day asked me, I'm planning to launch a company, what about starting together?
Wow.
Clearly being alone is impossible because I'm teaching, but having another student that was already, and let me tell you a little bit about the student, but was already planning to become an entrepreneur, was easy because he established his company and was able to create the strategy with him and to play my role as an artistic director in the creation of this practice. This guy was already graduated in engineering, he already had a job, but the company he was working on, a consulting company, offered him a master in management at my school of management. He was a telecommunication engineer, so very strong technically, but he needed the managerial skills to run a company. He didn't know about finance, accounting, etc. So he came to our Polytechnical Business School to study these topics. And I was one of these teachers. So he understood he was developing his skills, but not enough to be alone.
Yeah.
And in Africa they say, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go in a group. I complemented his skills and he complemented mine. We had his entrepreneurship, ability with information system, knowledge of some suppliers, and I introduced the knowledge of the market, of the distribution channels, the strategy, and I embarked in a fantastic journey of being artistic director, where I'm drawing basically the packaging, the bottle and the cap of the perfume, and I'm also designing the fragrances. This journey is fascinating because I learned so much more rather than what I knew before about fragrances. Then now I'm becoming also a teacher, but more than a teacher, an educator in fragrance culture.
Yes. And do you think it's a very upcoming segment, fragrances?
I think so. I was thinking so also 15 years when I launched the company, and I hope for a more rapid development, but definitely the money we are spending every year in fragrances is growing. What I noticed some 20 years ago was that many people of my age started developing a good education in wine, attending wine courses, sommelier, etc. And then they started having meetings on Fridays and Saturday nights. Rather than go disco dancing, they go wine tasting.
Wow.
And when you start drinking good wines, it's very difficult to go back and drink cheap wines. And I expected the same to happen in fragrances. And it's happening. Before coming here, I attended the show of artistic perfumery in Milan that ended last week. It's happening every year in spring. And there were the crowd so huge and so impressive we had at our booths all the time. People leaning into fragrances. We charge for my perfumes what is fair. We launched 4 fragrances that are selling at 600 euros and one that is selling at 700 euros. And people were reasonably understanding. They were aware of the quality of the materials. Maybe some of them cannot afford. They're just visiting us to smell. But I mean, when you look at a Ferrari, I think that most people should admire a piece of art.
Absolutely.
They should not say, oh my God, how expensive it is. Price is right.
Yes.
The price is there. Not everybody can afford and access to that. But that's the beauty of luxury. You do the best. And in Italy, I think, honestly, that we're very good, whether it comes to super yachts or speedboats, interior design and lighting, supercars, fashion, and also fragrances.
Everything
Create the
which is
best.
more over the top, more extravagant, more beautiful. Absolutely. Thanks for sharing that with us. So tell me, Alessandro, what do you think about our young talents, our students, and how do you think that a master's program in luxury management, which is so 360 degrees, benefits a student and imparts the right skills for them to maybe become entrepreneurs? What's your comment on that, and what do you have to say about that?
Well, first of all, what we cannot do, because every school, every program, every endeavor to support other people has to be focused on what can be actually given with that. We cannot create talents. We are looking for talents to participate in our
Absolutely.
maths. But if the talent is not there, we don't have the magic wand, and we don't create hard work.
Yes.
We are not here to motivate people. People have to come fully motivated. Fully motivated. It's not my role, it's not my responsibility, and I don't want to be needing, to introduce tricks like measuring people every single day. If people are coming with talent and with motivation, we start with the dowry, we start with the fabric, with the raw material that is needed. You can be a great tailor, but you have to start with great raw materials.
Absolutely.
We are the tailors, we create. What do we create? First of all, we instill a sense of knowledge for the industry. You cannot improve what you don't know. So as you start knowing what happened in the past century of fashion, in the past 30 years of a revolution of luxury, you know what's the missing bit. Second, we create connections. We create connections between students and researchers, providing new data, new stimuli for further research. Second, we create connections between students and students, because it's very difficult that one student will embark alone in an entrepreneurial journey. It's very easy that 2 or 3 of them, getting to know each other along 1 year, eventually shake hands and decide to start for a journey.
Absolutely.
Third, we create a link between them and the company. Because sometimes you need a supplier, sometimes you need a logistics, sometimes you need to know in which department store to sell your stores. You want to become a designer for sneakers, streetwear, fashion, do your design, but make sure you have the right connection before you embark in that.
Yes.
There's another bit that is sort of undecided whether we cannot provide or we can provide that. Most entrepreneurial activities have to start with a certain budget. Who is giving the money? Don't expect you start an activity and after 6 months you break even. You might be breaking even after 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. How can you survive in the meantime?
Absolutely.
This is growing, but there is a growing number of investors, venture capital, and other kind of institutions that are getting interested in what we do today. Today, I cannot guarantee we can provide the capitals that are needed to start a journey. So I suggest that everyone who wants to become an entrepreneur checks the budget and the cash needed. But I'm sure that with the connection we are going to create, we will be creating opportunities also for students that are ready to embark in a journey and don't have the cash yet, because cash is out there, and a lot of investors are only looking for great ideas.
Absolutely. So I think, to the audiences, you heard him, you need to have your own motivation, you need to have your own drive, but at the same time you definitely get the skills when you're doing a program like this. You learn, and you have to keep motivating yourself to go through the entire journey, as you heard from Professor Alessandro, very rightly said, because I completely agree with you that it's not a one night miracle. It's a journey. It could take 2 years, it could take 5 years, it could take longer. but the idea is to keep your skin in the game and to keep yourself motivated. That's very important. So I think Alessandro, in my experience so far, I've come across a lot of students that I've met and I've communicated with that are really willing to jump in and do a program like this, but a lot of times they are very shy. They come from different backgrounds, they're very intimidated, they don't know whether it's the right decision. What message would you like to give, not only to students who are confident, but even to students who finding it difficult to take the plunge, to move ahead, whether to do such a program or not? What's the message from your side?
Okay, I will go back to 1992, where I was to decide the university. My choice was already made actually, but as I was coming from a B series high school, professors were a little bit skeptical to send us, our class, my cohort, to the best technical university in Italy, which is Politecnico di Milano. And I met two professors. They were already full professors at Politecnico. They were basically the professors that invented management engineering in Italy. And one of the two professors told to me and to other colleagues, you decide what you think is right for you. You don't feel to be forced to go into one choice or the other. And between us, I was the only one who eventually decided to go of the all the other game. But it doesn't matter, because that professor told us, whatever you pick, you have to make sure to become one of the top 3 in Italy in that category.
Wow.
Whatever you want to go and make ice creams, that's okay, provided that you make the best ice cream in town. Don't aim for anything less than being excellent in that. So if you are able to select a niche, we have students attending the master, they want to open a luxury dental clinic, they want to focus on luxury Indian whiskies, they are expert of luxury cigars. Not everybody is ending up working in Gucci or Dior or Louis Vuitton, great companies of course,
Yes.
but there's not room for everybody. But if you are able to select your niche, there will be much less competition, and driven by the passion that you have for yachting, for golf, for resorts, for food, for tea, for whiskey. We have so many examples of our students. You can become the best and the leader in that specific niche. Nobody is forcing you out of your comfort zone. You are for cars, don't look at fashion. You are for fashion, don't look at watches, because of course these are widely different sectors.
Absolutely. Well, very well said. And I must say that it's up to you whether you want to be a small fish in a large ocean or you want to be a big fish in a small pond. So choose wisely. And luxury is about being unique, having your own niche, creating your own small group and community of people. So that's very important. Thank you very much, Alessandro, for gracing us with your presence, and we're so happy to have done this podcast with you. We look forward to many more different topics, much more interesting, more diverse, with you of course in the future as well. Thank you. So Alessandro, come on, before you leave, you have to tell our audiences, especially the ones who love reading, your choice of the best 3 books that you would like to recommend to them.
Yeah, let's focus on luxury, because otherwise if we go on management is too wide. Well, the first is the classic Luxury Strategy by Professor Kapferer, a book that has 20 years of history. It's speaking of modern luxury, but is now becoming an institution. A more modern book written by a millennial, an Indian friend of mine, Love Branga, The Ghost of Luxury.
Wow.
Written in a very wit way, and by somebody that understands the mindset of millennials. And then I am proud to have co-authored a couple of chapters of the new managing luxury brands by Kogan page. So with these three, I think everybody would have a nice perspective of what is going on in luxury.
Absolutely, different varieties, and I think for the audiences who really wish to get started with their reading, all the books are available on Amazon.in, so you can just have a look and start browsing and maybe start reading as well. All the best to all of you.